Hello, I'm Finn. I'm a clinical psychologist, and I'm here to tell you if you have OCD, there's hope. There's a cure. It's very, very efficient, and if there's anybody telling you that OCD is for life, they're probably not talking about you, they're talking about themselves. It's so not true. So what's been scientifically measured is that our very, very ill people with OCD, if you use a 4-day intensive treatment, which is being implemented all over Norway these days, 4 days of intensive work, 4 years later, more than 72% of the clients are free of symptoms. They are not sick. And a lot of them are a lot better. And the dropout rate is 1%. I mean, that's better than high school, isn't it? So, there's hope. And this is science. And what is totally unacceptable to me is that there's no cure, or I should go to Bible school. I believe in science, and I believe in logic, and I believe that you deserve a good life. Also, it's a bit selfish because curing people is a tremendous ego booster. Now, the good news. There's a blues song going along the lines, the blues ain't nothing but a good man feeling bad, a good woman feeling bad, same theme. OCD people are good people. You are a good person. Maybe too good, even. OCD people, given half a chance, they would be the best friend you could have. They would be helpful. They would not bother anyone. They would be good family members. They would be good employees. They would do really what it takes to be a good community member. OCD people are not bad people, but they feel bad, and that's different. What I'm getting at here is feeling and thinking is not doing. Okay? So OCD is a good person feeling bad. But feelings and doings is not the same. That's very important. So, what else can you say? It's 2.3% of the population all over the bloody planet, and there's a lot of them who cannot afford paying people like me. Which of course is a tremendous problem. But you should learn about anxiety, and there's a lot of good information on the internet from official sources, and there's a lot of bullshit. Excuse my French. So, anxiety is perfectly normal. You need it in order to avoid dangerous situation. Your nervous system is telling you to run away from things or fight things. And there's biochemistry linked to that. It's perfectly healthy. But 1 out of 8 in a lifetime, 12% or something, get so anxious and stressed out in a lifetime that they need treatment for it, which is good for me. So, anxiety becomes a problem when your body tells you that there's danger when there is no danger. The most simple way to explain this is phobia, right? You're afraid of something for no reason. Certain things we tend to be very afraid of, and not other things. We tend to be afraid of snakes, and we're not very terribly afraid of cars. Cars are very dangerous in comparison to snakes. We're afraid of airplanes. A lot of people are afraid of airplanes, and they're much safer than cars. So, there's some innate programs here, but phobia is you avoid a very specific thing that is not dangerous. So of course you should be afraid of things that are dangerous. Okay? So, there's a trigger. That's what they use, the OCD people. They talk about something is triggering something. And if you cannot cope with triggers at all, then maybe this film is not for you. Or maybe you should watch the whole film, because I'm going to tell you how to help yourself. And it will take some time to land after this, but I can't help myself. You're not in control of what I'm saying, and what OCD people want is control. They want control with their own mental processes, and they don't want free thinking. So, I should be afraid of dogs, but I'm not. And I can present you with this, and most people would just, okay, something happened to his pinky, and apparently it's not a problem because he's left-handed. But if that thought is tattooed into your brain and will not go away, and you keep on looking at that, and it's haunting you for days, then it's OCD-like. What I'm trying to do here is, to begin with, I'm going to normalize it a little bit. People have low-scale versions of OCD if they're in a crisis. What if I lose my job? What if I lose my job? What if she leaves me? Is he fucking somebody else? What? Is he? That type of thing. Repeating in an echo chamber. That's not insane. Most people have that, especially when they're stressed out in crisis. The problem about OCD is that it's a vicious loop where you have thoughts triggered by something, and that leads to thoughts that you want to avoid, that leads to ways of doing things or not doing things that should distract you from those thoughts, and then a negative loop begins. And the negative loop can turn people into worrying about things for absolutely no reason, and they can go on worrying and live miserable lives for more than 20 years for no bloody reason. So, let me give you an example. Health. I am afraid that I will develop cancer. And you worry about that for 25 years, and you're not ill at all. You don't have that problem. You might have another problem. But, so, worrying too much. And then common sense would say, stop worrying and maybe occupy yourself with other things, and stop worrying and pick yourself together and that kind of thing. It's not going to help one damn thing. So, the thing is, if you interpret the meaning that you give to the thought, that's a little tricky here, because children don't do that. Okay. What's the meaning with this thought? Why am I thinking this intrusive bad thought? That must be because I'm a bad person. I just told you, you are not. It's the urge to be a good person that is the problem, because you're overdoing this a little bit. So, OCD people are good people. They're usually clever and creative people. But the thing is, they are triggered by something that urges them to control things. And here's the clue. When you're afraid of something, then what OCD is about, before the fear level peaks, you will try to distract yourself from the fear by doing something, like washing your hands, or avoiding being with children, or going away from a potentially erotic situation, or staying away from philosophical topics, or washing your hand, or what that might be. But the whole rationale, and the reason why this works and cures a lot of people, is we know that fear, and that especially goes for panic attack, it reaches a certain limit, and then it flattens out, or flattens faster out. That comes with training. So you have to live with the fact that you stop the fear reaction before it peaked. And that's learning theory for you. Everything we do is created and maintained by its consequences. We are rational human beings. I have to say this, psychologists disagree on a lot of things. Psychoanalytical approach to this is not going to help. It's cognitive behavioral therapy. I'm going to say that again. Cognitive behavioral therapy, it's this word. CBT. We love these three letters things. CBT is going to help you with this ERP. I'll get to that later. So, what to do? You cannot afford a therapist, and you have to make damn sure it is the OCD you have. Because if it's something else, this cure is not probably going to help us much. or maybe it is anyway. The thing is, diagnosis first, medicine afterwards, we like that, okay? So, there's different types of OCD, right? So you put a letter in front of the OCD. Let me see, can you get, this one, yeah! What might that be? HOCD. Yeah. This one. This one. Pick the one that you don't have. Now, on a serious note, if you want to work with this, you find out the subcategories of OCDs, and I want you to begin with to try to avoid the one called pure OCD, because it's tricky. So, there's health OCD, there's pedophile OCD, there's sexual OCD, there's contamination OCD. What's wrong with the word bacteria? What's wrong with that is that it does not include virus and so on. So, study this. Knowledge is the way to set you free. So study this and find the type of OCD that you don't have. And then treatment begins. So, you have, some children have that, I like that a lot. They have an imaginary friend. So you have an imaginary friend, or a real one, that has the type of OCD that you certainly do not have. And you make the ladder of fear. It sounds very dramatic, it ain't. What you do here with the ladder of fear is simply you find a type of OCD and you categorize it in what would be the most terrible thing to do if you had this type of OCD, and what would be no problem. Okay? Do that. I'll link you to it. So, this should not be dangerous, right? You're making a hierarchy here, giving 0 to 10 points to some type of OCD that you do not have. And then phase 2 of this is what would be expose yourself to these fears, and what would the response normally be to that fear, and how would you prevent that? Okay? Very concrete. I'm afraid of social situations, so I don't go to the supermarket because I might meet a random friend and they want me to small talk, and I hate small talk. That's a very Norwegian problem. They're socially awkward and backwards in this country, especially the main population. I'm generalizing, sorry. ERP, I want to explain that now in a more neutral way. So, help yourself would be, you find out what would be a way of exposing a person to exactly the things they want to avoid, and what would the normal response be that should be prevented. Classic, here's a trigger. Don't wash. I mean, if you can't watch this film from now on, you're running away. I strongly urge you to not do that. Can you live with it? It's a trigger. And how many points would it have if you have health? After all, it's my health, it's not yours. I'll live, I promise you. Or maybe I should go and wash my hands. Yeah, but in that case, for how long? I mean, maybe the best thing would be to go and do something about it. Yeah. Okay. So rational behavior would be wash your hands and use hand disinfectant afterwards, and that should not take 4 hours, right? How much time should that take if you're rational? So, you have a trigger, you think there's bacteria, that leads to thoughts, oh no, I'm going to die from this, and that's the meaning you attach to this thought. I know this is irrational, I'm being stupid and irrational again, so how should I avoid fear? I go and wash my hands. And then you stop the fear for a bit, But the natural thing, and I'm using this word on purpose, is do not wash your hands and experience this. You go a little further and it peaks and it falls down. And this is painful. I promise you that. Of course it is. And like Barack Obama said about a complicated situation, I'd rather have a root canal. I mean, that's something. So, unhelpful interpretation of your obsessions is what it's about, and trying to control. So the strategies you have, if you have tried to help yourself, the traps, the wrong way of doing things, is what a lot of people write on Facebook. Calm yourself. Think of something else. Meditate something. The thing about meditation exercise is a little tricky. I'll get to that in the second video. But the traps is checking things. I should control that my hand is absolutely clear. I could control the oven. I should be checking that the door is locked, that the car light is not on, and so on. And I do that too many times. I should seek reassurance, like writing on the internet. I have this idea that I am totally wrong in one way or another, and people are going to write you, like I did. You're a good person. Nothing wrong with that. Washing, avoiding things. You should avoid avoidance. That's what it's about. That's what most fear treatment these days is about. Exposure. Expose yourself to the fears and learn that if the situation is not dangerous, your nervous system will learn it. It's a learning theory. It's a learning curve. But you have to let the fear peak. And as you get used to this, I can't cope with this. My nose, I mean, I have to go and wash again. I mean, but it won't be long. I mean, so you have to go and see to that, because this is a... I mean, this is a... Is this clean? I don't know. So, but the thing is, I mean, there's been some Facebook nasty telling me you should not have triggers in your film. And I know that, oh, adrenaline. Adrenaline will make you exaggerate things. So if things are, in a way, dangerous because of adrenaline, they could potentially flip over and become funny. So, what are your OCD? And are you sure the diagnosis is correct? I dare you. Could you make this point here, this ladder? And the next phase is the exposure and response prevention. You should do the opposite of what your OCD tells you to do. I should really lie on the sofa and relax and avoid all social contact. Nope. That's what your OCD tells you to do. It's not been working for the past years. Do the opposite. What would that be? Think it through. So, and that's what's missing with some of these fear ladder thinking. So, you have situations with a score of 10. What would you think and what would you do? And the doings here should be prevented. Because people tend to think that there's a blurred thing, that there's no difference between thinking and doing. I'm going to say something really terrible. But harming yourself, having fantasies about that for 25 years and not doing it, that is going to give you a poor quality of life, and there's no reason for that. So, the vicious circle of OCD keeps going when you avoid things and you restrict yourself and try to have control. This part of your body, you have the heart and you have the lung function. It has to be on the move, and you should not really try to regulate it because it works on its own. I promise you. And because of fear, you want to control this part of the body. So a lot of health anxiety is based around this area, and you feel there's a lot of tension. But I'm not saying you should get a scientific physical examination to be absolutely sure you're not a hypochondriac, but you're something else, of course. But worrying about cancer for a lifetime that never happens. That's stupid. No, it's not. It's OCD, and it's not stupid. It's just a learning trick that turns you into a very nervous person. It doesn't have to be that way. There's cures and there's hope. So what we're bringing on here now is the ERP thing. So, exposing yourself to situations that bring on obsessions, triggers. Okay, let's say the social life is a problem. So, and this is a bit funny, I've noticed. Some people, most of them think, well, I hate being evaluated by other people. Okay, I attack that generalization. How about kids? Yeah. Kids. Kindergarten, kids, 4 or 5 years old. What if they think you're foolish? I can live with that because they're children. Okay, that's a good start. I feel socially awkward amongst grown-ups and youngsters, but not small children. Or the opposite. It also happens, it's a little rare. So, social situation, how many points, what's the most difficult thing? Well, the most difficult thing would probably be that I should be the leader of a group that does something complicated that I know about. Or I should explain something difficult. People who have that frame of mind are usually very well equipped for explaining things because they have verbal skills to an extent that is surprising. So, exposing yourself to social situation, that is exposure. But the response, running away or drinking or taking medications or meditating a lot, you have to go into the social situation and make it difficult and then learn what happens when the fear curve flattens out on itself, because that's a natural process. So far, fear, obsessions, the meaning of your thoughts degenerating yourself, and rituals in order to take away those thoughts from your mind. That is what makes fear stay with you. And you find a lot of Facebook people from a good point of view saying you should use this or that strategy that works absolutely against you. And these people have had their OCDs for more than 5 years. So they're nesters. They're not psychologists. They're expert patients, and that's a different category. So, some of the Facebook advice is bad advice, and some of it is good. And let me be extremely simple here. If it's based on ERP, it's a good idea. If it's not based on ERP, it's not. Religious groups, meditations, I don't recommend it. But I'll have to say some more about meditation, medication, and physical exercise in a later thing. It can be good for you. So, get to know your OCD better. What type of OCD is it? Write on Facebook, I have these and that symptoms, and so on, but don't do it every day. Build your own personal fear ladder, and then exposure time. I feel sort of ambivalent. Could you do this with your spouse or with a close friend or not? I'm not sure. Could you make a contract with yourself? Maybe. The idea I would like is that you find a person on Facebook and you get to know each other despite the fact that you're not living in the same environment, and then you make agreements about training ERP once you've learned it. And stick to it. This is work. It's about getting back your life and your freedom, and it's more important than holding a job. It's more important than anything. And if you disagree with that, well, that's okay. Just go back to whatever your normal is. Or what? No. What I'm saying, if you get professional help based on these 4 days or 5 days intensives, you can cure your problem. And if you belong to the 22% where it's not working, it's probably because the diagnosis is not correct. Or maybe you should just do it again. There is hope. Don't let anybody tell you that this disease cannot be cured. Because the ones saying it are the ones who've been sick for more than 5 years, and they are wrong. The Norwegian program and others like it have tremendous success. It's a triumph these days. So many people get cured. So, Norway, 5 million people, it's a small country. 2.3% of the population will get this treatment in the coming years, and we will see tremendous results 4 years later, 5, 10 years later. You can get better, I promise you that. So, you should not avoid, you should try avoid avoidance. So if there's triggers and you run away from them, you are contributing to more OCD. If you write on Facebook and only write about your symptoms, you are sort of reaffirming that the way you have the OCD is an absolutely normal way of having the OCD, which is not a very clever thing to do. So, modeling. If you have some compulsions you've been doing for some time, it may be difficult to face the feared situation without doing those compulsions. And I'll get to the pure OCD now, because I don't believe it's a very good, what should I say? I don't really believe in it. Pure OCD is you have intrusive thoughts and then you do nothing. And it usually occurs if you have good time on your hands and you're not keeping busy. So, exposure would be try not to keep busy. Try to relax if you can. Do nothing. Have nothing on your agenda. And when the thought comes, what is it that you're not doing? Because it's usually a knockout, meaning I cannot do anything but just stay here and think and be unpleasant. So, there are bodily reactions that you can easily do something about. But the ERP is also based on a time structure. You should not delay it, and you should not make it shorter than it should be. The big idea, and I have to emphasize this, else it's not going to work. Here comes fear, 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 fear. If it's not falling down after the peak, or falling down steeper, that would be lovely, wouldn't it? If you don't have that experience, if you're chopping it off, then it's not going to work, or it's going to have a very reduced effect. And if one exposure works, it doesn't mean you should stop doing it. You should re-exposure. So, what was the OCD you did not have? Pedophile, health, contamination, some of the others, existential, OCD, whatever. So, now we're moving to the ones you actually have. And you should re-exposure, and you should do things consistently, and it's going to be a lifestyle for you. In that case, self-help is going to make you move forwards. So, the fear ladder, how close can you get on your own to the 10 points or the 7 points? That's up to you, but I promise you, you have not lived with OCD for so long without being a brave person, and I admire you for that. And I promise you, you have this because you're a good person, not because you're a bad person. You want to do good things. In order to do that, you try to keep control with your thoughts. Let your thoughts run freely. You cannot, it's like drowning a football underwater. You can keep it there for some time. Let thoughts flow through you freely. That's the essence of what this mindfulness is about, which is inspiring a lot of people. I see it as a money-making machine. So, ERP is curing a lot of people. If it's not working, you should do more of it. If it's not working as self-help, you should get professional help, or you should work with somebody else who could help you be brave and stay committed. But anyone telling you there's no cure for this is wrong. It's not science. Science is categorize a problem and do something about it based on logic. And this is curing people in Norway by the thousands as we speak. There is hope, I promise you. There is hope.